the inaugural
First one.
SoMin podcast. Episode number 2. Wait, is this episode 3? Welcome to the 4th edition. Episode number 5, SoMin podcast. Episode number 6.
Number 7.
I
Jesus.
did it. My name is Matt Brozick. I have my sidekick, Wade Abid. The SoMin podcast, episode 9. Is this 10?
I think this is 10.
This is episode 11. It's where you join us on conversations we would have had anyway. Welcome back to episode, I already forgot, 13? This is episode, I don't know.
I have no idea anymore. I'm not going to keep count.
14. Welcome back to the SoMin podcast. No idea what number episode we're at right now.
Don't care.
Completely lost. Podcast episode, I don't know, and I don't care. I've totally lost track. I've lost complete count as to what number we're actually on. Completely lost track. I've said that probably 4 or 5 in a row. Welcome back to the SoMin podcast. Conversations we would have had anyway. Welcome back to the SoMin podcast. I think my camera's over there. There we are.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the SoMin podcast.
Welcome back to the SoMin podcast episode. Don't know, don't care. We completely lost track, lost count. Don't know. Welcome back to the SoMin podcast. 20s episode, Tony. Is that kind of 24? Wow. All right. 24. Wow.
Yeah.
To me, if I did Matt Brozick Financial Podcast, no one would listen because it'd be boring. So secondly, is the reason I wanted to do it is because, like you and I were talking off air before we started here, is the fun that I have is talking with people, being inquisitive, asking questions.
And we had an idea to do a women leadership series. You're the first podcast guest. And so I did what most people do. And I Googled you.
You didn't Facebook me first.
No, which is great.
I'm originally from St. Clair.
Okay.
So I consider it Mankato for the most part, but I have lived in St. Peter now for over 10 years. But with my husband, I have 2 boys, a 1.5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I own Grafe Clothing.
Yep.
And that's my life.
So what about what you're doing now? Did you know back then? It's like that's what I want to do. What drew you to what you're doing now?
I did not see myself, I guess, saying owning a menswear store.
Yeah.
What I saw myself doing was being in retail specifically, but sales.
Yeah.
I knew with jobs I've had other than Dairy Queen, customer service, my communication, my skills were just very driven in the personable interaction.
Do you guys remember? So, Owen, you're 8. You got 8, 9, and 11, right?
Do you remember what it was like when you were at Eagle Lake School before COVID?
I don't think there's like a lot of stuff off the top of my head, and I pretty much have no idea, but I'll try to remember a few things off the, I guess, bottom of my head.
Let's just start at the bottom.
Start at the bottom of your
All
head.
the way to the top. First of all, school then was really not fun.
So before COVID-19, school wasn't fun.
Yes.
Okay.
And now it's a tiny bit more fun. Oh my gosh, I like distance learning so much more.
Why is that?
Because, like, even if I got my schoolwork done by, let's say, 1 o'clock, they'd still give me more. I cannot leave until, I don't know, I think it's 2 something.
Well, I was going to school at first, but then we had to start wearing masks, which that was a big change for me because I have never been in a pandemic. I'm only 9 years old.
I mean, like, yeah, that's kind of what kids do. I mean, they're never in pandemics. I mean,
I was I was raised in Quasquinton, Iowa. It's a small rural community of about 500 people. I went to a consolidated school system, was raised in a rural environment, quite rural, dairy farm in the 1950s and 60s. The way I got into special education was I was looking for an area where I could get a job. And so I looked at what options were out there. Special education appeared to be the best opportunity to get a job. So I went to summer school, took 15 credits in the summer.
Yeah.
Which was a lot.
Yeah.
I got a job the following year on a temporary license.
Okay.
So in 1977, you got a temporary license in special education, you could be a teacher. Every year since 1977 that I started in this career, every year there's been a shortage of special education teachers.
Yeah.
You can get a license, a temporary license with less than a full degree because we can't keep enough people in the field.
Yeah.
It's great work, but it's hard work.
I grew up in central Iowa on a farm, and I started my restaurant career when I was 10. I would ride my bicycle into our town of 200 and help LaRue, that owned the cafe, wash dishes, deliver plates, whatever she'd let me do. I think half the time I didn't even ask to be paid. I just had her feed me. And so I went from there and I did some franchise work at Country Kitchen in central Iowa. I loved to hustle. And that's why this whole COVID shutdown has been extremely hard, because I hire people, I surround myself with people who like to run 1,000,000 miles an hour. The faster we're moving, the happier we are. I have people wanting to work. They'll work doubles on Fridays and Saturdays anytime we're busy. And that's who I like to be around, and that's the way I like to work. I like to work hard, and I like to, feel like we're making an impact.
I still have a corporate world job, and I do a lot of real estate investing on the side, and I think that's kind of what we're here to talk about. And my life is my family and my kids, and then it's real estate investing and hockey and fishing.
And fishing. There you go.
Fishing. One thing that has just blown me away, I've been doing it for a decade and gotten relatively bigger over the last 3 to 5 years here. No one ever reaches out to me. So like if anybody's watching this, like it's Daniel Sprague on Facebook, like message me. I love talking about real estate, because the way to get started is to seek someone out who's doing it and talk to them.
And they do it all the time, and they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Find a mentor.
Anybody who, if you contact me and say you want to go get coffee or a beer, I'll meet you and I'll talk to real estate, talk real estate with you.
And this is where we're getting at, I believe, in the conversation of being a transplant. And this has evolved in every place I've lived. It's not just been Norfolk, Virginia, and then to Mankato. There's a few others, but being younger, making those connections and building your network, and just randomly, hey, how you doing? It's different versus when you're in college, when you're already buzzed up. You've already got a six-pack in you, and you'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
That was the biggest difference. And I am I'm a little bit of an introvert anyway.
Yeah. But like, don't you have, say, like a group of coworkers or something like that you get along with, like or not? I mean, was that something did that help? Did it not? What was that like?
100%. There were a few coworkers that I did go out with, and that was my social network.
Yeah.
And I think you get to the point where when you're comfortable, you expand beyond that.
So I grew up in Iowa, Sheldon, Iowa. It's about an hour or 30 minutes south of the Minnesota border, so pretty close. And then spent 7 years in North Carolina. So that's where I got my master's and my PhD. So I ran cross country and track at the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, and then went to grad school in North Carolina. One thing I was thinking about, especially because we're recording this in January, I do find that it's really helpful to, write just like 3 goals down for the year. What are your big 3, right? And then how can you align what you do today with those big 3? How could you align what you do this month with your big 3? And I find that people really don't really know what they want.
Yeah.
They haven't even spent time thinking about it. And then if they do, they play pretty small with it.
Just had a chill down my back.
Yeah.
I think that's totally the case.
Yep.
That 80, 90% of people have no effing clue what they want to do.
So Nancy Zalek, and my maiden name is Taylor.
Yep.
And so my family has actually been in this community I'm the 5th generation. My family came here. They started Brett's Department Stores in 1868. So that was 10 years after Minnesota became a state.
It wasn't your ties to the community because you're 5th generation. It's because you're a fantastic executive and you drove that nonprofit corporation and you have built something that is sustainable because you're really freaking good at it. And that's not like, I'm not trying to pander or what I'm saying, but I watched it happen.
That's incredibly kind of you to say that.
But it's true. It's not kind, it's true. It's true and kind, but it wasn't because she's a community person and she knows people. That's bullshit. You built this thing you're a true CEO. You built this thing to be, it's the biggest nonprofit we have in the community. All things funnel back to you. Not just from like a standpoint of, well, I don't know how to do this. Well, who should we call? And I went, let's just call her. And she knows, like, she's figured some out. So like, I'm serious.
Well,
Yep.
I've done nonprofits now for 20 years, so
Right.
hopefully I figured some.
We have somebody here named Jordan Moan. He is a DPT, which I believe stands for Doctor of Physical Therapy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. He's coming here from the lovely Mayo Clinic.
I grew up in a small town in southwest Minnesota on the South Dakota border. I have an identical twin brother and an older sister. My dad was a farmer. He retired from farming. I thought about going to the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, but the thought of traveling from one side of campus to the other on a bus was a little bit overwhelming, coming from a town of 700 people. So I went. I had a number of coaches I was talking to from the football team and the basketball team in Concordia, and I had family in town too, so I thought it made sense. In addition to, Concordia is a pretty good pre-med school, and at that time I was pre-med. Shortly after I got into Concordia, experienced everything they had, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do pre-med, so instead of pre-med, searched around a little bit, did some observations, and ended up going into physical therapy, partially because I had some, I'd seen it, I'd been through it before, because in high school I tore my meniscus in my knee, which is kind of a similar story that you'll see from a lot of physical therapists. Well, why'd you go to physical therapy? Simply because you'd seen it, it's had a really significant effect on your life, and that's true for me as well. When I was a senior, I tore my meniscus, like I said. Went to, you hurt your knee in football and you think your athletics life is over. Yeah. And being that small town kid, that's all you have. So going to physical therapy, kind of gives you hope again.
We have the hockey coach for the Mankato East boys with us, Adam Horia.
Good. How are you guys today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for
Couldn't be any better.
By.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Talking with us a little bit today.
My brother's playing high school hockey, and there was a junior gold team, if you will. They needed a coach. The coach there had been there for a while, and they were like, if you want to do it, let's shoot you into this. And so I got into it, and I was like, immediately, I'm like, this is what I got to do. Like,
That's awesome.
This is awesome. Like, this is it.
This
is where I want to be.
Like, what about it made you? How did you come to that realization? What was the thought pattern? Like, what made you all of a sudden say, this is it?
Well, first of all, that's the passion for the game, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you don't have a passion for the game, then you don't really, then it's hard to coach, right? Because you got to want to be there.
Yep.
And the other part of it was you stepped into the rink every day. You got to skate, right? You got to learn the game. You got to teach the game, and then you got to dissect the game.
Yep.
And like usually it was just the coach just telling you this is what you're gonna go do, and then you went and did it, right? Did you know the purpose? Yeah. But now it was like, now you have to figure out the purpose.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like a puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle that came just natural to me. I could put a Rubik's Cube. By the way, I can't do a Rubik's Cube, but it was like a Rubik's Cube that a lot of people can't figure out how to coach either.
I have with me Louise Dickmeyer. You go by Lou, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's only been a couple times in my career where I've actually had to go look for a job. I've been really fortunate in that I've been recruited by people who've come to me and landed in some new gigs. But I was reading, I don't remember what it was exactly. I think it had to do with, the approach that you take if you're going to go try to work at a university or in higher ed.
Yeah.
And they talked about writing your employment narrative. So kind of mapping all the things that drew you to different roles. And I never thought with this wild mix of stuff that I'd done that I would ever find any common thread or consistency. But here's what I learned about myself, and I'll hold it forever, although now I hope I don't go for another job. But I love building things that are blank slate. Whether it's like the MLS, cardboard box on the floor.
Yes.
I got to build it. I got to lead the way, got to map it. I like being self-directed. I do like building things, and I like building things from the ground up.
We have Melissa Bradley.
Melissa Bradley's the CFO, right?
CFO?
General manager. Yeah.
General manager?
And
Okay.
GM.
Recently,
Excuse me,
an owner.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm
So we
terrible
have
at
owner.
introductions.
When I started at the dealership, Todd had laid out a very clear path. He sent me to Dealer Academy, which is in Washington, D.C., which is a school that they teach you how to run a dealership. You know, you go for a week every 6 weeks in Washington, and then you go back, and then you have to work in parts, you have to work in service, plus you have to do your regular job.
Yep.
And the people who go to this, I was the only person who was at the school that wasn't a child of a dealer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I really quickly I was like, well, I want to own a dealership someday. Like
For sure.
I want to. That's what I want
Yeah.
to do.
Yep.
And Todd and I had conversations about that like all the time, and worked together on his succession plan. And so in January of this year is when I bought in, and so Todd and I are partners.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And it's pretty recent, so I
Yeah.
feel that's. Thanks for sharing that with us on the
It is
podcast.
super cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Our guest is Lisa County. And I'll just call it and just say you can introduce yourself and what you want to share.
So I start my day at KYC. Get up, I get there about 5:30. Well, I get there at 4:30 in the morning. Go on the air at 5:30, and then when I leave KYC, I go to MRCI, which is a nonprofit in Mankato that serves individuals with disabilities.
Absolutely.
And that helps fill my cup because the news isn't always great to talk about, you know. So I need to find something that's good in my life. So spend the day at MRCI, and then I have other things that I do on top of that. Connect Business Magazine is one of them.
Okay.
North Cato Magazine, that's in its infancy still, but that's a really fun project. Do some adjunct teaching at MSU and various other things.
And so our guest today is my best friend, Brandon Lee Hayes, hails from Lakeville, Minnesota.
I work for a multinational or global third-party logistics company. I started off just kind of taking a leap of faith, changing industries, and I got into brokerage. So I was banging phones, trying to book freight with carriers, you know, buy low, sell high, or maybe that's opposite, I don't know. But I was kind of learning the industry, cutting my teeth that was the best job, and I still say that to the people that I train. I did that for about a year and a half and got an opportunity to move to the commercial or the account management side and further learn more about the industry. And with that, I was really responsible for managing some produce importers. You know, you think about fresh strawberries and grapes and things like that in the winter. Well, it's not from here, you know. So learn quite a bit about that. My current role is I train our new hires.
Okay.
So that's my main kind of focus right now. But I also get into management and leadership skills with our managers, sales skills, things like that. In the old world, I used to travel around to different satellite offices and train.
Melissa Kruper is our guest today. You and I have officially never met in person. We've only seen each other through a screen. You've done some social media work for me. I wanted to have you on, one, because I want to learn a little bit more about your backstory.
Yeah.
And then, just kind of learn a little bit about social media marketing today, what it was in the past, what it is now, and where it's going in the future.
What I've really realized and what I teach in marketing, marketing and sales is psychology. It's understanding humans and why they do things. And I truly believe that as much as I couldn't see it for so long, that is why what I teach is so effective, and it's helping people understand things from a deeper level. It's not so much like what's happening with the algorithm or what do I need to do on Facebook. It's understanding humans and why we buy things and our behaviors. And that is how you influence them to purchase and grow your business. So yeah, I actually think it does, and it did. And even though I didn't finish my master's, it's something that I still think I could even do one day because I love marketing so much, and I think it's so important.
We have Ryan Sturgis. Ryan, thank you very much for stopping by today.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. This is really exciting. It's like a challenge to push yourself to be really brave, Theater and singing, which is another thing I've done a lot of, public singing, professional singing, and it's frightening. There's no question about it. But I guess I really value that emotion or feeling, just sort of being scared and doing it anyway. And it's something that I kind of got addicted to, in a sense. Like, and the other cool thing about theater is that it's really collaborative, and you kind of you've got to pull your own weight, and you've got to not try and be the star every second or it all falls apart, you know. And it's similar to certain team sports and things like that. So, and I always I love the camaraderie of it. I loved that. You know, it's a build up, it's an anticipation thing, and then you've got to go out there. You could learn your lines and spend all the time you want trying to prepare, but eventually you are out there and you don't have anything to support you except for your own memory and your own guts, you know. And that's something I've always been drawn to, you know, that sort of emotional experience, I guess. And I also really love words and ideas, you know. I'm big into philosophy, and there's a lot of philosophy in theater. And there's, you know, theater is an interpretation of reality. And I'm a huge film fan, and we'll get into my obsession and love of film probably, but you know, and theater was a more immediate, something similar or relatable to film, but something I could do at my high school.
We have Bryce Stenzel. You are a teacher. You're a historian. You're an author. Are there any other major things that I missed on the introduction?
I regard myself as a student of history.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the significance of Abraham Lincoln and why you find him so interesting and want to bring to light his legacy.
I found him interesting from the time I was a little boy growing up here in Mankato. My dad was a World War II veteran, so I think it starts with that. I grew up with a strong sense of patriotism, and my parents instilled me this sense of right and wrong, this sense of truth. You know, you need to tell the truth at all times. The stories that we read in my kindergarten classes, you know, reinforced that. In those days, when we had both Lincoln's and Washington's birthdays separate, it's before the President's Day holiday came into being. They'd show this film every year of his life. He fascinated me. And I think the physical aspects of his face, that always fascinated me too. And I never dreamed as a boy that I would, you know, someday portray him. So that wasn't it. The interest transcends, you know, my physical resemblance by far. That was a happy coincidence, but that wasn't the reason that I got interested. I think it's for those other reasons that I mentioned.
We have Angie Van Emmen, who you and I grew up in the same neighborhood-ish.
Yes.
Because you were on Manchester Court.
Yes.
Right? Next to Zach Murrah.
Yes, who I work with.
Who you work with, yes.
I tell people I'm an open book. You can ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think I told you this, but if anything I say and people looking at me, again, I think people perceive me maybe differently when they meet me. They're like I said, you're different, whatever. And I am more than the Angie V and the booms and the sold all these houses and whatnot. But if anything that I have been through and came out on the other side and the happiness and the, just a testament to how good God is. If I can help any single person get from maybe they're in the situation that I was in, to help get them the other side and be maybe an inspiration or okay, if she did it, I can do it. I've told people before, I've been through it. I've gotten their side. If anyone's going through that or living in a bad relationship, I'm happy to help any way I can. If it's getting a hotel room or helping people get off or whatever. But if anything that I've said, even going through the death of my dad, the bullying, the situation with my being a single mom and, living that and juggling that, or businesswoman, or the situation of the abuse and getting out of that and getting the other side, or finding the confidence and believing in yourself and becoming your own full pie. If I help one person, it's all worth it. And so that's, to me, is how it is. And it's I've said this several times now, but if God brings you to it, He will bring you through it. And I've been brought through it. Will there be terrible shit that happens to me? Of course, that's how life is, but it's how you get through it and how you navigate life. And if I'm able to help anyone, I'm happy to be able to share my story.
We have Chris Kleiss, and he and I, we went to high school together. And we haven't talked or seen each other, run into each other since probably high school.
2005.
lot of ups and downs, man, trials and tribulations, man. You know, I come from a lot of different walks of life, you know. So, man, you know, I've always did my music thing, you know, since back in high school. So for a while, I dove real deep into the music, doing shows. I did 2 mixtapes with fellow rappers of mine. Tour life, you know, I toured with Bone Thugs and Harmony for a little bit, you know, across, you know, Midwest area a little bit, and had 2 kids, had to, you know, put the music career on hold for a while, you know, do the father thing, and I stumbled upon somebody that know how to paint, learned the painting game, and that's what I've really been doing since then. I've been painting probably since 2012, so those first couple years, you know, I was just hanging out, you know, just getting by how we do, and then I stumbled upon this painting stuff, and man, I really liked it. I really liked what was going on. Someone told me to really sit back and actually try to learn this.
We have Marissa Brostrom, and we're going to talk about. We're going to talk to you in a second.
I showered this time.
Oh, this is so great because now you knew that it's on video.
I was more prepared.
You got dressed.
I got dressed.
You have heels on. This is like.
I got the beer I wanted.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed still of that first one. But you were our first episode guest.
There just was so many changes from when we talked last. It's like, yeah, we're gonna open another store. We just really have no idea when because we just really don't know what's happening. But I look back now and I'm like, holy crap, we have a second store, and it just kind of happened.
So, like, for those, one of the hardest things from a non-entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, like, there's an adjustment of like having your own faith in yourself, of diving off the cliff and doing something that you're not totally sure of, or if it's going to work or if it's not going to work or any of those things. Like, did you have some reservations in opening a second store?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had no business for how long last year, and we are completely, I mean, to be 100% honest, like hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
Like no money. I mean, if you want me to be really real, we're posting zeros day after day after day.
Wow.
And you could about imagine somebody who thrives on seeing people and thrives on obviously sales. My life is sales. My life is seeing people. You could about imagine, well, I mean, it leads to a second store because that makes sense. You know, spend more money when you have no money. Yeah, no, I mean, I had reservations. I like to consider myself a confident person, but I also doubt myself a lot. But if I don't think about it and I just go, that's when I'm more productive. If I stop to think about pros and cons, you can about imagine them and say, no, I shouldn't.
You'll talk yourself out
I'll
of it.
I'll talk myself out of it. And I know that about myself, so that's why I'm just a go-do-it person.
Well, my name's Jeff Mead. I'm from Mankato native. So grown up here most of my life, all of my life. I was in industrial sales for about 12 years in the adhesives world. As of last week, went full-time into farmland real estate, and so I am a farmland real estate agent.
I've known Jeff for, it's coming up on 10 years, give or take. It's, you know, somewhere in there. You know, good friends, business partners, have done a ton of stuff together, you know, family spent time together. So I was thinking about stuff that I have no idea about. What is your favorite type of fishing?
It's evolved to walleye fishing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm a Minnesota guy. Yeah. It got bred into me early.
Well.
But when I was a kid, I grew up fishing probably 5 to 6, some weeks, 7 days a week, you know, when I could in the summertime. And then when I was old enough, I did the same, even ice fishing. I just enjoy it so much. And muskie fishing has never been something I've gotten into. I just enjoyed fishing in general, catching anything when I was younger.
Yeah.
I thought bass were pretty cool, probably because all the bass shows around, I was an early riser. Yep. I'd get up and watch like Bill Dance and Jimmy Houston and all these guys would be 5 in the morning, and then I'd go fishing at Hinneker Pond, like for the rest of the morning or something. But so I liked catching bass growing up, and then my dad put the walleye bug into me, and I kind of got into it, and fishing's become more of like a challenge sport to me, you know, that I enjoy. I mean, it's leisure too, but
So we have two really cool guests, which I have a little bit of history with, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we have, is it Malade, and Susu Sadaka.
But when you were talking about, you know, the stress of the financial part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So far, right now, the prices we're given and what we're given when we cater and stuff, that's not about that.
Mhm.
We're barely breaking.
Mhm.
It's about showing who we are
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
having you addicted to what we are.
Yeah.
And how can we move
So we can
forward?
bring you back.
So
Yeah.
we know you're gonna come back. We don't care if we made money from you right now.
Mhm. What-
You know, seriously, it's really right now. It's not for us. It's not about that. It's about proving who we are, what we can do, and how far can we go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can get far and you're addicted to us, then we can sit down and do this and say,
Gotcha.
whatever it is, gotcha.
Checkmate. Check.
We have some cool guests today that I have not met, Wade have not met, but we're connected through Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. Yep. Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge is a long-term drug and alcohol rehabilitation with a faith component to it. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Zach here, and then we have, I'm going to say it wrong.
Rolando. Roll for short.
Yeah, okay, roll.
Roll's a lot easier. People don't know that.
That's true.
All right.
Roll.
I've been in treatment 5 times.
Okay, so 5.
Once and then that's once in prison, which was CBT.
Yeah.
The cognitive behavior therapy. None of it was faith. Like it was easy to get sober. Like, okay, I'm sober. Now what? Still,
But to stay sober.
Yeah,
But to
life
stay,
still
right.
sucks. My emotions are feelings, and now they're just raw feelings and emotions
Right.
that I have to sit here and I don't know what to deal with. It didn't work.
So you've been in treatment. This was the one time, like the first time you went to treatment, and you had success, and
Yeah, I mean, I'm 19 months sober at this point, and it's the one and only treatment I've been to. I'm trying to name it out loud.
Yeah.
It's the first and last treatment I'll ever
Yeah.
be at. You know.
But I think it's the component, that faith-based component,
Absolutely.
is what they
100%,
say, and like the studies bear out to show that a faith-based component, not necessarily Christianity or not necessarily whatever your religion that you were drawn to, but to have a faith-based component is what makes the success rate so much higher.
So our guest today is Kelly Myers, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. So I started as I think it might have been a marketing assistant.
Okay.
I might have called it marketing specialist at that time, but very, very entry level.
Okay.
So definitely over time just grew in my role, and then at the same time the firm was growing. Over time, as we grew, my role evolved, and so initially I was just kind of overflow work, and then it fell into conference coordination, and then we just kept adding more conferences and more services and more locations.
Yeah.
But again, coordinating is a big piece of it. So we have planned content or planned material that we want to put out throughout the year.
Mhm.
So it's some of those projects I lead, some of them I'm more oversight on. So those are our planned pieces, and then conferences is a big element of what we do. And then as part of those conferences, we get perks with our sponsorships. Or we also go for the extra opportunity of submitting abstracts to be chosen to be presented. So again, just helping elevate our staff of experts and making sure the outside world knows that they are experts in these things. So just making sure that they don't focus, I mean, not that they shouldn't focus on projects. Projects are always number one, but also that they share their expertise with others, especially within our own industry, so that they can continue to learn and realize what's available to their community.
So I want to thank you very much, because we're like at an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh,
believe it or not.
we knew we'd go over. We're best friends.
That's totally, we're best friends.
We'll put it in the office.
Yeah, we could put it in the office. So yeah, thank you guys so much for doing that, and we will see everybody next time. That'll be fun.
That's
So
funny.
thank you very much for
Yes,
coming,
thank
and
you.
we're super excited.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Bolton Manx Studios. Thank you,
thanks,
Mr. Mead.
everybody.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for being on, taking the time. I know you're super busy right now. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thank
number
you.
one for. Thank you. There you go. You got it alone. Well, Bryce, I can't even explain to you how much fun I have had in this conversation today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for this.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun with you guys.
A big shout out, big thank you to Brandon Lee Hayes as we close and wind down this podcast with Lisa County.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
This was
you.
super interesting, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming
very
on.
much.
This has
My
been
pleasure.
super fun, and we will definitely swing back. Probably stop because we're
Anyway,
Coffee.
Coach, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Got Coach Freeze.
Say hi to my wife, Becca, my kids, Connor and Corey. I love you both. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for coming on, and we hopefully at some point we can get you back on.
Thanks for going there with us. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Tony. Daniel, Joseph Sprague, our real estate investor. Thanks for being here and doing it. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you taking the time, and obviously at a busy time in your job right now.
I am thrilled and had so much fun meeting you, and I really mean that.
Hi.
Okay, sign us off.
Okay.
I've had a ton of fun having our conversation.
Yeah, it was great.